When you've got too many devices and too little space, trying to figure out where to mount things can be an exercise in maybe a little frustration. Hi, I'm Nika Waters, and welcome to the Boat Galley podcast. I'm sharing our recent find that we needed to find to be able to display our chart plotter to be able to see it from the cockpit. Today's episode of the Boat Galley podcast is sponsored by MantisMarine.com, maker of the Mantis Anchor, now available in models with and without a roll bar. Proven to set reliably in the most challenging bottoms, the Mantis Anchor digs like no other, making anchoring safer and boating more enjoyable. Mantis Marine brings to market practical, durable, and affordable marine products, including anchoring gear, scuba diving accessories, and a rechargeable waterproof headlamp for hands-free lighting. Visit MantisMarine.com and see for yourself. Before we can anchor, we need to get where we're going. And for many of us, that involves some kind of navigation. These days, an awful lot of us are using electronics for that. And for us, for a long time, we've relied on our iPad. With the Navionics app, it's been a fantastic way for us to display the charts and to see where we're going, and we love that it's all right there. Calypso's pretty small. We don't have a binnacle. We don't have space on the bulkhead to mount anything like that permanently. And so we've loved the fact that we have a RAM mount that clips to the Dodger frame, and we can put our iPad in there and angle it just the way we want to, and we can see it from wherever. We also love that we can take the iPad off and put it down below if we're in inclement weather or if we're just ashore and don't want to leave it out in the cockpit for easy removal by somebody else. When we talked with people about taking Calypso to Maine this summer, almost everybody told us that radar was just about required. You got the lobster pots, you have the fog. There's no way you can sail Maine without a radar. Certainly, that's an exaggeration. There are lots of people who sail Maine without a radar. There are lots of people who have sailed Maine without a radar before radar was ever a thing. So, no, it's not required. And yeah, we definitely agree that radar can be a very useful piece of navigation gear once you know how to use it. That's another whole learning curve that we haven't yet been able to tackle. But as we started to look into this, thinking that yes, we were going to go to Maine on Calypso, we said, okay, the problem is that there are all these options. There are lots and lots of options. How do you decide what size radar? How do you decide what brand? A lot of the radars that you get, they won't talk to anything except their own brand-specific chart plotter. We already have an iPad. Why can't we figure out how to overlay the radar data right onto that iPad? Anyway, all of this was making it really difficult for us to think about really getting a radar. And so we had pretty much decided that we were going to cruise Maine this time around without radar. And then a friend offered us a Garmin Radome. It had been used exactly twice, and the price was, let's say, a little bit too hard to pass up. So all of a sudden, we're back to, yes, we have a radar, and now we started to look for a chart plotter. All the chart plotters that we needed to look at were now Garmin, which was probably the brand we were going to go with anyway. But what display model are we looking at? They've got a 7-inch one, they've got a 9-inch one, and a 12-inch one. The 7-inch, as we looked at it, and we looked at it in comparison to the iPad that we were very used to navigating on, the 7-inch was just too small. And a 12-inch would have been great, all that real estate to play with and to look at and see things. But the price of a 12-inch chart plotter was more than double the price of a 9-inch chart plotter. We just couldn't justify that leap in price for something that was already pretty expensive. So the 9-inch was our Goldilocks. And when we compared it size-wise to the iPad, we realized it was just a little bit bigger than the iPad we have, so that was fantastic. The next thing we needed to figure out was how were we going to mount this? I referenced earlier that we don't have a binnacle. We don't have a way to put it on the bulkhead in the cockpit. And the thing with a chart plotter, unlike the iPad, is that the chart plotter needs to be wired in. And so a Dodger mount, like we have for the iPad, is a little bit problematic. There's no way to run the wires up through there, at least not on our boat. We needed to be able to see this thing while we were underway. And we couldn't figure out what we were going to do. We were actually just about resigned to mounting it somewhere down below, continuing to use the iPad as our navigation in the cockpit, running the plotter only when we needed to use the radar, and we were saying, boy, this feels extra dumb. And then our friends showed us their solution. They're on a 34-foot sailboat, similarly challenged in terms of amount of cockpit space, and they're a tiller boat, so they don't have a binnacle either. What they have is a double swing arm with the base point mounted inside the companionway and their plotter in its bracket sitting on the top of that swing arm. So they can swing the plotter into position to be visible from the helm, and yet it tucks away neatly inside the companionway and inside the cabin, neatly when you're at anchor. No worries about wiring, no worries about needing to remove it or figuring out how to get it out of the way for prying eyes or weather or whatever. So this looked like a really great solution. And the company, Ram Mounts, that makes these mounts, they have so many options for all kinds of devices. And in fact, the mount that we have in the cockpit on the Dodger frame for the iPad is a Ram mount. We actually have Ram mounts in our car. Why it didn't occur to us to look there for the chart plotter option, I have no idea. Maybe it was because there are so many options and so many things to look at on their website. It's hard, if you don't know specifically what you're looking for, to narrow in on something that might work for you. So yeah, it can be totally overwhelming to sift through the choices. But Ram mounts, I can't imagine there's not something there for whatever your device storage needs might happen to be. Meanwhile, Calypso's got a snazzy new block that swing arm mount is going to block to, and the chart plotter will fit right there and swing right away into a corner in the galley, which then when we're sitting at the chart table down below, we can actually angle the thing and see it when we're down below in the boat, and we can swing it out and see it from whatever our position happens to be in the cockpit. Win-win. Ram mounts, totally a thing to check out if you're interested in device storage on your boat. I can't wait to share an anchorage with you when we're both out there just enjoying ourselves in the incredible life that cruising has to offer. Thank you so much for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. We love hearing from our listeners. We love it when you don't forget to subscribe in your favorite podcast app. And we love it when you share us with your friends. The more, the merrier in this Boat Galley podcast world of ours. Have a fantastic week.